Thank you very much, Swami. I'm very glad to be here. Always glad to be back in San Diego, which, as Swami said, I always consider home. Even now, after so many years, I left San Diego in 1997, 26 years ago. And even now, when I talk about, well, I've got to go back to our ashram, I often say I've got to go back to San Diego. So I'm always delighted to be back in San Diego, even if it's only virtually. And of course, San Diego is especially inviting right now because here in France, we're going through a very cold spell. It's even cold here in the house, so I have to stay wrapped up to stay warm. So anyway, thanks to Swami Harinamananda, I'm able to join you today. He asked me to speak on surrender or acceptance or whatever you like. So I'm going to speak on surrender and acceptance and whatever I like for 20, 25 minutes. So it's a wonderful topic and one that has become in the very recent years one of my favorite topics. Nowadays, the path of knowledge, jnana yoga, has become greatly popularized by wonderful exponents like Swami Sarvapriyananda, him in particular, who is so clear at expounding the non-dual path. And I myself have always loved the path of knowledge. But the path of surrender and acceptance is equally beautiful, and it's not at all contradictory to the path of knowledge. In fact, the path of knowledge can often lead us to just intellectual understanding, and it's hard to go further. Even great Advaitins like Ramana Maharshi spoke very frequently of surrender to God and acceptance. Again, coming from someone who always emphasized non-dual knowledge. So I want to say, first of all, how it is that the two are not contradictory. That is the path of devotion, which includes the path of surrender and acceptance, and the path of knowledge. There are several different ways one can show a similarity, but one that I like and that I'll share with you this morning for you, it's nighttime here, this morning, is this. The first division in pure consciousness, in Brahman, in the absolute, where there's no differentiation whatsoever. It's not even one. That's why it's called non-duality, because there's no relationship, there's no thought, there's no object, there's no perception. There's just infinity indescribable, known as existence itself or reality itself or truth itself, all saying the same thing. Consciousness itself, but not consciousness as we know it. Just the knowledge of truth, the pure aha, the knowledge of everything in a moment. Not knowledge of details, not knowledge of things, but the knowledge of the absolute truth, full awareness. Present in there's not even time. Just in a moment, there is everything. And which is bliss, beauty, love, everything else we can think of that is beautiful. So that to non-dual reality, which is not even one, because when there is no two, then you can't even talk about one. That reality, the first division is between I and thou, that is I and you. But the old English term thou still resonates with beauty in a way that I and you just doesn't have the same power. So let me speak in terms of I and thou, meaning I and you, of course. The first division in consciousness is the sense of separation, a division within the ultimate reality itself, the indivisible reality, an apparent division where there's I and thou. You may say that, well, in grammar of all languages, there are three persons. There's the first person, I and we, second person, thou and you, and third person, he, she, and it. But no, he, she, and it are abstractions. We don't say he, she, or it. We don't address he, she, or it directly. He, she, and it is something that we're talking about that is not presently in our experience. In direct experience, it's I and thou. So the first, and especially at the first division in consciousness, where it's only consciousness. When we speak of he, she, it, the third person, we're speaking of something which is not someone or thing which is not present, and also something where we're not thinking of them as a direct confrontation with consciousness. Thou is a direct confrontation with consciousness. So I and thou, when I find myself in this universe as an individual person, there's still the experience of I and thou, but there's experience of all kinds of diversity. So one of the tasks in spiritual life, whatever path, whatever yoga you follow, is to come to a sense of unity. And whether that unity comes through I, seeking for who am I, or through the experience of thou, who art thou? Who art thou? It comes to the same, because it's an artificial division within the same ocean of indivisible consciousness. In that experience, there's no I and there's no thou. There's just infinite beatitude. So whether you take the position, I seek thee, O Lord, O Divine Mother, I seek thee, or I seek to know who am I, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. That's why Swami Vivekananda said, let it all be either I or all thou, but let there not be two. Either all I seek who am I, or all thou, I seek you, my beloved. But there's only the I or only the thou. Let there not be a second. So when we find ourselves here in this relative world, where everything is subject and object oriented, I'm the subject of my own world, and everything else to me is an object, including my own body as an object of my perception. Even my thoughts are objects of my perception. There's a division between God and a conscious being, an individual, man or woman, child, animal. There's a division between God, the infinite, and the individual. In the highest reality, there's no division. There's only the I, which is also only the thou. But in our present experience, there is I, the individual, in confrontation with this universe, which seems to be separate. And so, looking at the universe, as Sri Ramakrishna taught Totapuri, the great Advaitist, whose experience was not complete, as he taught him, when we are in this level of experience, there is God. That infinite reality is God. God, the one whom we worship, God, the one whom we pray to, God, whom we develop devotion for, is the divine object, an object which is really the ultimate subject, the object which is not just an object, but the subject of the whole universe. It's difficult to think I am everything, but it's easy to think God is everything. And at this level of our experience, where we are right now, God is. God is. It's only in the absolute where there's no God, there's no man, there's no woman, there's nothing except for infinite reality. But here, as long as we experience ourselves as separate from that, as we do right now, then God is real. And so the path of surrender and acceptance, really surrender and acceptance, are aspects of the same thing. To realize that there is this infinite consciousness, which is God, which is the beloved, which is infinite love itself, which is infinite wisdom itself, which is infinite care, which is infinite solicitude, which is infinite tenderness, which is infinite beauty. That is God. It's hard to think of myself in those terms. I can think of myself as pure consciousness sometimes, and I can seek that. What is the source of my consciousness? Who am I, etc. But to think of myself as infinite beauty, to think of myself as infinite love, how do I do that? But God is that, and I can think of God as that. Whenever I experience beauty, I'm experiencing a small ray of the divine beauty itself. Beauty is God. And wherever I see beauty, wherever I see love, I'm perceiving a little spark of the divine being. As Swamiji says in Inspired Talks, if you see a mother cat nursing her kittens, bow down and worship. Because where there is love, there is God. And then he goes on to say, believe this literally. Believe this literally. Wherever there is love, there is God. Wherever there is beauty, there is God. And as we grow spiritually, our concept of beauty changes a great deal. At one time, it's quite physical, but in time, we begin to see inner qualities as the source of beauty. And the external appearance of things is not so important to us anymore. But that beauty is coming from the divine, and it draws us back to the divine if we allow it. So, surrender and acceptance. How do we practice these? In order to, well, first let me say what's the connection between surrender and acceptance. As I said, they're aspects of the same thing. I surrender to God. I surrender to the will of God. But how do I do that? By accepting whatever it is that God brings to me, to accept the circumstances that come to me as being brought by God. The will of God, people ask, what is the will of God? The will of God is time. Time is the will of God. Time is Kali, the Divine Mother. Time is Shiva. Time is Jesus. Time is the divine being, the manifestation of the will of the divine being. It's the flowering of the will of the divine being. And so surrender means acceptance of the things that come to me in time. That doesn't mean passive acceptance. It doesn't mean that if a truck is coming towards me, then that's the will of God. I'm supposed to be run over, so I just stand there and wait to be run over. No, it doesn't mean passive passivity in the face of experiences of life. It means that every experience that comes to me is brought to me by the hand of God, the loving hand of God, even painful and difficult experiences. And what my part is to learn how to interact with the circumstances that come to me. I don't want to use the word how to react to them, because reaction has a negative connotation, like reacting with anger and so forth, or with agitation. No, how to participate with the experiences that come to me. Everything that comes to me is brought to me by the hand of God. And if I can learn to understand that, I can accept and participate in the right way with every experience that comes to me, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience. Sometimes what I need to learn in the face of an experience that comes to me is how to say, no, stop, I won't accept it. That's legitimate if it's the right thing to do. So acceptance doesn't mean, again, allowing a truck to run over you because you think it must be the will of God since it's driving in my direction. No, it means learning, what do I need to learn from this experience? Why is it that God is bringing this experience to me? Let me dance with it. Let me pray to God and ask, why have you brought me this? What am I to do? What am I to learn? So acceptance is the way that we practice surrender to God. We do that by first understanding that time is the hand of God. Time is the will of God. But also we have to learn what God means in Vedanta, because God is not someone outside of us who is doing things to us. That's the problem with the idea of surrender and the idea of God's will. The problem with it for most people is that it makes it sound as if God is doing things to us. No. We need three types of faith in order to understand this. Three types of faith, which are comprehensive of all of the faith that we need. One, we have to have faith in ourselves, that within me is the power to rise spiritually, to eventually become a Buddha, to become illumined. That power is within me. It's been attained by many humans in the past. I'm a human and I can attain to it too, given time and proper effort. I can do it. So having faith in myself, having faith that whatever problems I may have within me, psychological, physical, etc., that this right here, not my body, but my whole being, is the raw material which I have to use in my spiritual path. It's out of this my whole being, that I form a spiritual path, form a spiritual being. The spiritual being is there, but it's through this, my raw material, that I mold in a spiritual shape and attain to spirituality. So faith in myself. Then I have to have faith in the universe, knowing that the universe is not out to get me, even though sometimes it seems to be doing so, even though sometimes it seems that things are against us. But no, the universe brings to us what we need. Sometimes it's pleasant things, sometimes it's painful things. But if we look back on our lives, we'll always see that whatever happened, there was something, some way that through that experience, I learned something. I grew in some way. And so learning to have faith in the universe, that the universe is not out to hurt me. The universe, because it is the will of God, it brings to me what I need in the moment. Everything I need in the moment. I don't need to go out looking for a place in the wilderness where I can get away from everyone in the world. The universe itself brings me whatever I need. And the third type of faith is faith, of course, in God. That is, that there is this all-loving, infinite reality, all-wise and all-loving. Not a judge. No one wants a judge. One wants love. One wants understanding. And God is that. God is infinite love and infinite understanding. And God is our own inner being. Again, there's not in Vedanta, we are not separate from God. So there's not someone out there doing things to me. No, God is the infinite reality in relationship with whom everything is brought to me that I need. So if I can have faith in myself, faith in the universe, that the universe brings to me what I need, and faith in God, then I have everything that I need. Then it's just a question of time. So when I surrender to God, I'm not surrendering to some random force that's working impersonally through the universe. I'm surrendering to the all-conscious Mother of the universe, Lord of the universe, the all-conscious, all-wise, all-loving heart of the universe. One might wonder, well, why do I need to do that? If God is all-loving and all-conscious and all-wise, why did he put me in this situation to begin with? That's an unanswerable question, because we just find ourselves in this situation. And it's not that God did that to us. Again, God and our being are the same reality. We and God and the universe itself are all manifestations of the same reality. The same reality, which is the heart, which is the essence of God, but it's also the essence of us. And that infinite reality manifests itself as subject and object. And so the thou, the you, is the divine being, which is not different from me. So I can learn to love God because God is love itself. God is not loving, God is love itself. God doesn't exist. God is existence itself. God isn't conscious, God is consciousness itself. And so I myself find that within myself, I am the light of consciousness. It's through that I experience my body, my mind, the outer world. I experience you and everything else that I experience, internally and externally. So I am that light of experience, that light of consciousness, and God is that same light. And when I can begin to feel that, then I begin to feel that my light is melting into the light of God. I know that I exist. I have the experience. I am. I know that I exist. I am means that I exist, but it also means I know that I exist. And so whenever I have the sense I am, I have the sense of being, and I have the sense of knowing that I exist. And so I exist, and I know that I exist. So I am existence itself, and I am consciousness itself, because I know that I exist. And when I begin to feel that deeply, I find that that is bliss itself. And then I know that I am bliss also. Bliss seems to be hidden from us now. And the problem is we can't grab it directly because it seems to escape us if we try to grab it. But if we let it be, we find that it begins to manifest within us. We begin to find an inner joy welling up within us. So that's what we want. So let me end this brief talk, and then I want to say a couple of other things for just 5 minutes. Let me end by saying that there is no need for feeling a conflict between the path of knowledge and the path of devotion. If we're attracted to the path of devotion only, then let us follow that. If we're attracted only to the path of knowledge, let us follow that. But for most of us, we find that sometimes we enjoy one, sometimes the other. And if we can understand the connection between the two, then we find that our growth is harmonious and that we can move easily between the two. But again, the beauty of the path of devotion is that I don't have the feeling that I am alone. I also don't have the feeling, which often comes to those on the path of knowledge, that everything is meaningless. If everything's an illusion, it's all meaningless. So why should I go to work in the morning? Why should I take care of my family? Why should I take care of myself? It's all an illusion. People actually come to me who have been following lectures on Advaita and the path of knowledge for some time and say, Swami, I love the path of knowledge, but now I've come to a point where I feel everything's meaningless. If everything's an illusion, why should I do anything? Yes, that's the problem with a viewpoint which we can't maintain. We're not ready to maintain. But in the path of devotion, we see meaning in everything. Meaning is in everything and at all levels. And by surrendering to God, we're surrendering ourselves to infinite love itself. Well, the last thing on that I want to say actually is, if I, through my spiritual practice, devotional practice, if I come close to God, as through my meditation, prayer, etc., I begin to feel the presence of God. And that inspires me to try to move faster towards God. I feel the attraction of God. In the beginning, bhakti, like every other practice, is work. But when I begin to feel the presence of God and the attraction of God, I begin to want to run towards God. Is there a point in my approaching God where I'm going to feel, okay, this is close enough, let me stop here. The ocean of infinite beauty, the ocean of immortality, the ocean of infinite wisdom is there in front of me. That's God. And I've come close to God. I feel the presence of God. I can sense the presence of God here before me. But this is close enough. I'm going to stop here. No, we don't say that. If we come close to God, we feel more and more attraction. We want to come closer and closer. And if we come to the shore of the ocean of God's beauty and God's being and God's wisdom, then we want to dive in. We want to lose ourselves in the ocean of God. But it's in losing ourselves in the ocean of God that we find ourselves. That's what St. Paul says in the Christian Bible. That's what Jesus says as well. And that's what the great devotional saints of all religions have said. It's by losing ourselves in the being of God that we find ourselves. Why? Because that's who we really are. That's who we really are. And so let us approach that ocean of infinite beauty, infinite wisdom, infinite love, infinite existence, infinite consciousness, which is our own birthright, and which is embodied in the very idea of God, who is our own self, who is the self of ourself. So with that, I'll stop on surrender and acceptance. And let me say now that I'm extremely happy to be here at a time when you're celebrating the 100th birthday of Leela Becker. I've known Leela since 1982.
Swami?
What's that?
I was going to ask you, do you have a few moments to still stay with us? Would you have like another like 15, 20 minutes?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I've got to go in 5.
Okay, okay. Go ahead, continue then.
Yes, yes. So I'm delighted, and I'm sorry about that, but I've got things here I have to do. I've got appointments that I have to take care of. So I'm delighted to be able to be here. I've known Leela, and I knew her husband Hank or Hari for so many years, since 1982. And I always have fond memories of Leela. And let me just tell a little bit about how I remember you, Leela, because I see you there. So Swami has turned the camera towards you so I can see you, and I'm glad to see you. And is that your son sitting next to you? I've forgotten your name. I remember you well, but I've forgotten your name. Can you repeat it, Harinamananda? I can't hear it. Okay, well that's okay. Let me just say that I remember you well also. I saw you a number of times in San Diego, but from the time I met Leela in 1982 at Marion Harrington's house, she was always a person who was always smiling, always finding the humor in situations, even difficult situations. I remember when she used to come back from her purchasing trips to New York, where she would go as a purchasing agent to buy clothing and things in New York City. And I still remember the story she told me after one of her trips. She had gone to one of our New York centers, and she appeared at the door at around a little before 6 p.m. and rang the bell. And some young man came to the door and asked her what she wanted, and she said, "Oh, I'm from from the San Diego Center. I thought I could come to attend Arati. Am I in time for Arati?" And the man looked at her with his nose a little raised and said, "Oh, we're much more intellectual here than that." So that was quite a shock for Leela. She didn't know that if you were intellectual, you couldn't participate in Arati. So Arati, Leela always had the capacity to see humor in things, humor in life situations. I remember you, Leela, as always ready for life, always ready for whatever happened in life. And I never remember you run over by life. I never found you under the wheels of life. You were always riding on top of it. And so people like Leela, people like Hari, Hank, her husband, people like Josephine Reed, people like Clementine, people like Pat Flipsa and her husband, Martin Flipsa. Those are the treasures of our Vedanta work, because these are people, Leela and the others, who show that Vedanta works. They're the people who have stayed with the ideas through thick and thin, trying to internalize the ideas in their lives the best that they know how, and with success. With success, they show that Vedanta works. They show that they have come through a long life and have gained through that. They've gained, they've grown. And so they are the real treasure of our Vedanta societies, people who can attest to the fact that it works. It works. The joy and the stamina and the positivity that Leela has manifested in her life will be something I will always remember. I may be thousands of miles away and 9 time zones away here in France, but I'll always remember you, Leela, as one of the treasures of my life in San Diego. You, along with the others that I mentioned, and others that I haven't mentioned as well. So it's a great privilege to have known people like you, and I wish you all the best on your birthday. And I know that Sri Ramakrishna, the Holy Mother, and Swami Vivekananda are always there for you. They will always be with you and guiding and protecting, even when we don't see them. They are there, and they are protecting you, and they are with you. And I also want to say a word about Don Melik. Don probably wasn't expecting a word, but I want to say, I don't know if he's there today, but he probably is. Don is somebody also I have great appreciation for. Don has been such great service to the San Diego Center. I first met him even before I met, no, I didn't meet him before I met Leela. About the same time I met him in 1982, when I had come back from India first to Trabuco. I was living at Trabuco when I met Leela and Hank, and also at Trabuco when I met Don and his wife of the time, who passed away quite suddenly. And after his wife passed away, he moved down to San Diego around the same time that I moved to San Diego. And so I've been associated with Don as I have with Leela for many, many years, for 42 years or so. And Don is an example of someone who quietly has served the center, who has served the devotees of the center. He was of immense help and service to Klimi, and not just to Klimi, but to others. And so, though he's not the type of person who wants any recognition, he is a person who, at least once in a while, deserves some recognition, and a recognition which I always have for him, have always had, and which I will always maintain, a deep appreciation for the quiet service that he's given, the quiet goodness that he's manifested. So let me give my best greetings to Leela and to Don, and also to all of you. Remember from the example of people like Leela, that if you just stay with the ideas, they will gradually go deeper and deeper into you. She's an inspiration to all of us. And with that, I will say goodbye. And from my French standpoint, good night, because it's already night.